Hello, I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Caroline, and we're interior designers. More and more people are asking us about what we do and how we do it.
Which brings us to our new design adventure, the Design Duet. Join us as we discuss the ins and outs and the ups and downs of interior design.
Welcome to the Heatherbrae podcast, where we take you on a journey through the restoration of one of Victoria's most treasured heritage homes. Heatherbrae, located in Caulfield, Victoria, is a magnificent historical residence that dates back to 1854. Purchased in 2023 by Vincent and Julie Fodera, this iconic home is currently undergoing a faithful restoration of its main house, stables, wash house and expansive gardens.
When complete, Heatherbrae will be a private family residence, blending the beauty of its heritage features with respectful modern comforts. It will also serve as a living gallery, celebrating the intersection of history, community, arts and culture. Welcome to the Heatherbrae podcast.
Thank you so much, Julie, for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
It's lovely to meet you.
Likewise. I always love to meet our amazing Australian designers.
Yeah, well, we feel like it's a treat as well. And we feel like we've got, a lot to hear about today. So let me start. How did your journey start, Julie, into heritage restoration? And why did you choose Heatherbrae? That's probably the biggest question.
They're big questions. So most people that follow our social media would know that I'm married to Vincent, and he is the man on the tools at Heatherbrae. And it is through him that I was introduced to heritage, to old homes. I don't come from that background at all. I grew up in rural Victoria, principally in quite modern housing, on the other side of the tracks. I lived for a little while in a caravan, lived on the street for a while actually, so very different upbringing. But I did pretty well in school, got into law, came down to Melbourne, and while I was a poor uni student, was looking for my third job so that I could eat. And I met Vince. He employed me at the Queensbury Hotel in Carlton. So he was managing the hotel at the time. And 3 months later, we'd moved in together and we've been together ever since. So his parents came from Italy in the 60s and they are very flamboyant. And, at a time when it wasn't fashionable to own these old homes, they bought them and renovated them. The first one that they did was one called Marks on Glenferrie Road in Kew, this beautiful towered mansion.
We know it very well.
Yes, so they bought that when it was a hospital. So all of those beautiful colonnades had been boarded up, and his dad could see beyond that and could see what it could be again, and brought that back. And that's where Vince grew up. When I met him, he had moved around the corner. His father would go on walks and he'd buy a house. Not tell the family. Yeah. And not tell the family and come back home and say, better pack your bags, we're moving. So I met him in the next house, which was called Malham, diagonally opposite Royton Girls' School in Kew. Yep. And so here I am, this humble girl from the country. He invites me to his home about a month after we'd been seeing each other, and I turn up in my beat-up old car. And I look at this pink mansion, which I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And I guess when he opened the door and I looked in and saw all of these high ceilings and the beautiful encaustic tiles, that's when I was bitten, that moment. I remember it very clearly. So I think that's what brought me to heritage for the first time. Also being around his parents who had such a deep understanding of, heritage preservation and restoration and antiques and that whole world. So, that's what got me there. And then the second question, to answer your question, what brought us to Heatherbrae. So Vince and I have spent all of our life renovating old homes, and we most recently, I think it was 2017, we decided to build a new home because we'd always had old homes and restored them. And it's a lovely home, but I've never really connected to it. Weirdly, I've always been the sort of person that would style a home within an inch of itself, just every, moment in the house, and I would love it and put so much passion into it. This home, I haven't kind of felt that. A privilege to have a beautiful home, and any home
Absolutely.
really, especially in this country at the moment.
You're still living in that home.
We
at
are
the
still
moment,
living in that home. But unlike the other homes that we've had, some of which have been very humble, as you can imagine, we kind of grew our journey. But yeah, look, I just didn't really connect to it. It's also kind of, we've got adult kids at home, and Vince and I kind of looking for a downsizer a few years ago. Yeah, I know. We're looking for a downsizer. We were actually bidding on a place in Albert Park on Beaconsfield Parade. And it was during that process that I saw Heatherbrae advertised. And I turned to Vince and I said, look at this. It's the most original period home we'd ever seen. I said, let's go have a look. I just want to see it. So we went and had a look on the Saturday. We walked down those cobblestones towards the house and in the back door, and honestly, I'd never seen anything so untouched. The stables, the wash house, all the bits and pieces in the home that, you guys have obviously seen. And I was like a kid in a candy shop walking through there. Oh, look at the oven. Oh, look at the widow's walk. Oh, and we walked out, and I particularly remember Vince turning to me and going, I feel tired just thinking about renovating that house. And we left, and we had no intention to buy it. And it was probably 2 weeks later I saw it advertised again, and they'd revised the price down significantly, 30%.
Wow.
Which put it into a bracket that possibly we could afford if we did all the work ourselves. And
How long had it been sort of sitting there vacant?
we bought it off the only child of an only child that had owned the home since 1916. Yeah. Long time, great custodians as well, the McGowans and Julie Cruz, thank you. Her parents had passed, and she had tried to look after the home and care for it, but a lot for one person, right?
Yeah.
So she had decided maybe 6 years ago, I think, to lock it up and move. She couldn't bear to sell it, being a generational home, but she wasn't quite, she was, that's what she chose to do. So it was vacant for about 6 years before we purchased it.
Right, okay. Well, I think you've already answered this question, but maybe we'll get more information from you. What actually inspired you then, and Vince, to take on the restoration?
Yeah, look, I think I've spoken a little bit about this on our own podcast, but the truth of it is I personally went through a very difficult time in COVID. I think in your life sometimes you have to rebuild yourself, and that's certainly what Heatherbrae has been for me. Yes, and also Vince, we all kind of carry the trauma and scars and wounds of life, and eventually we want to, hopefully we get to a stage where we can transform. So Heatherbrae for us was kind of that moment where we looked at each other and went, you know what, this might actually bring us back.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
And so even though we're bringing her back, she's bringing us back too.
Oh, I love that.
Sounds like a beautiful story, but a great journey.
Mm.
Yeah, gorgeous. And tell us then, what challenges have you faced during this restoration?
Yeah, I get asked that quite a lot, actually, as you can imagine on a project this large. I don't think there's been anything unexpected. If you're a serial renovator, you expect everything, right? So we've been very pleased with how structurally sound the house has been.
Yeah.
We obviously lost the Greek key inlaid floors in the main and rear entrance hall. That's probably the biggest disappointment. They were just too far gone, right down to the bearers. They were gone. But it was an opportunity to bring something creative back into the home that can't be eaten by borers and termites.
Yes. And do you think that's influenced your approach in other areas of the home because of, seeing something so beautiful have to go? Do you feel like you want to make sure that you preserve everything possible in the home?
Look, I think we already wanted to do that as much as we possibly could. Funnily enough, Heatherbrae, it has a heritage overlay, but it doesn't have it's not a significant property. So it missed it by about that much. And whilst that most people would see that as a tick, because it means you don't have to cover off every decision, I think for us we would have kept to what we found anyway because it was so perfect.
Yeah, and so beautiful in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
How do you plan to balance your private life when you open Heatherbrae for community events?
That's a good question. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, we might ask you that in a year.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I do know. And look, it's our private home, right?
Yeah.
And we had, as you may know, we had a last public tour of Heatherbrae back in February this year. We won't have public through the home after we move in.
Yeah.
But we will open the gardens.
Lovely.
And I'm as excited about the gardens as I am about the house. We've brought the lovely Helen out of retirement to help us do to help us with the landscape architecture. I've never used a landscape architect before, and in fact, I've never used an interior designer before. Not that I don't see the value in that, I absolutely do. It was just never something that we could kind of afford through our journey. And I don't mind that. I think what's happened for us personally is that we've learned a hell of a lot because we've had to kind of navigate it all ourselves. We've made a lot of mistakes,
Sure.
many, many mistakes, but that's how you learn, right?
Absolutely.
Steep learning curve.
Yes.
So when will the first sort of community event be, perhaps in the garden?
Yeah. I had kind of altruistically thought if we could get in by September, which it's September now, I don't think it's going to happen. I thought that we would have a Christmas decoration making
beautiful.
in the front garden under the Moreton Bay Fig for the local community.
We need to go to that.
Yeah.
We will be there.
And that was inspired by a trip that I took through. I'm part of the National Trust of Victoria, and we had a tour of Como House where they were making Christmas decorations in the traditional way. And I went, that would be a really nice way to engage community.
Yes.
Let's do that. So I called some of the team and said, let's make this happen. I'm not sure if we'll get to that by Christmas. And if we don't, then possibly we'll do something early in the next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And tell me, another thing that we would love to hear about is, why did you create Heatherbrae 1854 Pty Ltd,
The company.
Limited company?
It's a good question, and it was created with great intention. I think in April last year when we got the keys to Heatherbrae, I had read an article about how the state government's centralising planning away from local councils to make way for 44,000 new home sites in and around Melbourne City and bring in 3 million more people in and around Melbourne City. This is an intentional policy choice as opposed to creating satellite cities like Geelong and Ballarat and putting in the infrastructure to create that. That choice, in my view, puts our heritage properties on the line, and that's bearing out now, unfortunately. So the motivation for creating Heatherbrae, the company, was to create a business that would provide a fundraising source for the things that I believe in, principally heritage preservation and advocacy. So it is part of our corporate charter to, once we're up and profitable, which will be about 12 months away, to share a large portion of our profits with things that we believe in, as I've just discussed. Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. I love that. Fantastic. And so, and what role do you affiliate marketing partnerships and suppliers and brands, and how do they play in this project then?
Yeah, it's crucial. I mean, we're essentially a digital marketing company. Who would have thought that this lawyer would have a digital marketing company? But here I am, and it's another steep learning curve, and I'm enjoying it. I've actually brought in my very dear friend Anne Baker, who is a marketing director for Gandel Group and has way smarter than I am, Harvard graduate, and she and I are kind of at the helm, and we've got a lawyer and an activation specialist and social media lady. So the role of our affiliates, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. They're providing products to Heatherbrae, so I'm trying to, as much as I can, use Australian makers and manufacturers for the products that we put in our home. We then enter into an affiliate marketing arrangement with them where we market their products and we're able to give back to our followers by giving discounts to them. In return for sales, we generate a small commission, and that commission then is put into a fund where, as I said before, we're looking to use that for community benefit.
Oh, Fantastic. So it's giving back to the community as well. So
and also
amazing.
potentially new designs which customers can purchase at your affiliated
Yeah, so
suppliers?
that's kind of another arm of our business. So I'm presently creating a range of carpets and rugs. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Go for it, Julie.
Well, certainly
got
doing
to
that.
lose?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. But so that we're really we are supported by a team that are so specialist in what they do. They have been pivotal in the launch of the careers of many interior designers, including Greg Natale, Catherine Martin. Incredible team, and I'm very lucky to be working with people of that calibre. Also, through them, now creating my own range of wallpapers, and that's with an Australian manufacturer as well. So, yeah, pretty busy.
Very exciting.
It'll all be in Heatherbrae, but you can, as the general public, can purchase these incredible designs and materials.
And here's a little exclusive. No one knows about this. So we have in my daughter's room used Brent Seach. Hello, Brent. Who's he's not just a painter, he's a vision translator, and he works with a lot of interior designers, Kim Neep, for example. He has done a specialist finish in there that almost looks like Venetian plaster with one of our custom paints. Oh, we're also creating a range of paints, and they're being launched next week.
And they're called Heather with different Heatherbrae.
Yes, so there's Heatherbrae Satin Sienna, which is in our daughter's room. And I'm now having an Australian artist, a fine artist, hand paint the mural in the room, which will then be replicated and printed and available for public purchase. So
incredible.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
It's very exciting.
So, Julie, before all of this, what did you do in your previous life before you took on this incredible
I
restoration
certainly travelled
lifestyle?
more and I had more sleep. But I'm a lawyer, so I started my life I didn't start my life as a lawyer. I started my life cleaning caravans in the Western District. But once I went to uni, I studied law and commerce and was very lucky to land a role with a company called Scanlon Carroll, a law firm where I did my articles back in the early 90s. And then I was a lawyer for Mercedes-Benz in Australasia for many years. And then I was recruited back to my original law firm as a partner. So I've had a lot of commercial intellectual property experience myself. I then jumped out for a little while and had children. So I took 5 years off and then I set up my own practice, Fodera Legal, which I've been running principally ever since.
Okay. I don't know how you do it all, seriously.
Well, how do any of us working mothers do it all? It's not easy.
We need to pat ourselves on the back a little bit, don't we, sometimes? Yeah.
And tell us, what will your role be at Heatherbrae once you finish the restoration?
The company or the house?
Well, I'm thinking the house probably, and like once it's complete. But then I'm going to say to you, it's probably never going to be complete, will it?
No. So, funnily enough, I've just come from, and I can't tell you which house because it's kind of hush hush. But I've just come from a historic home in Melbourne that I never thought I'd see, and I've just had a private tour. And this is a very old, wealthy family that is a household name. And as I walked through their home on this beautiful tour and heard the level of detail, they have a whole staff running this house. And I thought to myself, our job will never be done because we won't have a staff at Heatherbrae. We will be the staff at Heatherbrae. And I think that was part of the whole discussion that Vincent and I had about keeping ourselves relevant and young and leaping into this project, something to do in our older years that not just keeps us well and healthy, but also gives back to the community. So,
and did you pinch yourself today when you're walking through that property?
I couldn't believe it, actually. Yeah.
Oh, well, you deserve it. So well done.
That's. I'm not sure whether I do. That's very kind.
No, I think you do. And tell me then, so what do you think your role might be in the company moving forward?
Yeah, well, I'm presently the director of the company. And I guess that makes sense given my background.
Of course.
I can imagine a point in time where I'm I might become more of an influencer and hand the reins to the other very capable, smarter than me people that are involved in the business. But for now I'm just trying to set it up and make it run smoothly and properly. And so
fabulous.
You're doing a great job of it.
Thank you.
Why did you bring Justin Bishop, the interior designer, Melbourne-based designer, into the project at a later stage?
It's a very good question. As I think I shared with you, when we got the keys to Heatherbrae, I really had never used social media. Been on Facebook for a while, and I'd watch my daughter, and son on socials a little bit, make sure they were okay, but didn't really know how to use it. After a while, after we gathered a bit of a following and I started talking to people, and the house was progressing and I was having to make a million decisions and experiencing decision fatigue at times. I also realised that that the house needed a bit more than me. Just little old me, lawyer, who kind of worked out how to do bits and pieces but wasn't quite curated enough to do what Heatherbrae needed, particularly in the masculine areas of the home.
Sure.
I had seen Justin's Instagram page, and he and I talked about this at a recent event that we ran together. He had seen Heatherbrae and followed me, and I'd seen him and followed him. And then one morning I was there trying to work through my to-do list, and I thought, that guy, there's a designer that has that beautiful aesthetic. So I'm looking back through all the followers, and I found Justin. I flicked him a message and said, hey, love your Instagram page, love your work. Would you like to come and have a look through and have a chat? And he was like, yep.
And that would have come through, that answer, within 1 second. And he, I'm sure, was doing the happiest dance of his life.
That's very kind. I certainly was when I met him. He's a lovely human.
Yes.
Incredibly clever.
Yes.
Creatively. And what I love most about Justin and why we work really well together is he has so much respect for heritage and he has restraint.
Yes.
It's not something I necessarily have. You can see from my wild colours, my high chroma colours.
Which we love too.
Yeah.
So what I've done with Justin is that he will come once a fortnight or once a month, and it's only been a few months. He will come and we'll spend a couple of hours and we'll walk through the house, and I will ask questions and we'll bounce ideas off each other.
Right.
So that's been really valuable to me. He also, and this is also, I haven't spoken about this before either, so you're getting another exclusive. Vince is hyper conservative, and where we come into problems is when I bring the aesthetic, he doesn't kind of understand it, and he's like, Jules, you once painted a bathroom purple. I'm not listening. But he listens to Justin.
Yes.
And so that's been really, thank you, Justin. That's been very valuable to my marriage. So, yes, we have a chat. We'll spend a couple of hours. And the other thing that I've realised is that Justin's abilities with the more masculine areas far outstrip mine, and they do right across the house, but that's where I really want him to focus. So he's just done a complete what do you call it, a mock-up or a scheme for our den, for Vince's den, which is amazing. Can't wait to show everyone that. And I think he's going to we have 2 cellars at Heatherbrae. One of them is quite large, and he's going to do our concept of a whiskey bar and gaming room down there.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah, so excited about that. And I'm going to get him to wave his wand over Mason's bedroom and Vince's TV room as well.
And his knowledge is extraordinary as well. As amazing. Yeah. And tell us, have you found the most beautiful piece in the house as yet? Has that been discovered, or you still think you're discovering it in this restoration?
Do you mean what I'm bringing into the house, or what was there already?
What was there already?
What you've discovered.
I think it changes all the time, actually.
Room by room?
Yeah, I think I have my moment with different things. Like, obviously, when I first walked through the house and saw that oven, I mean, I'd never seen anything like that in my life. I think my favourite room is the wash house. I don't quite know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's just so original.
Yeah.
Like, you walk in there and it has the original handmade bricks on the ground with the irrigation channels still in there.
Yes.
With little holes cut through the brickwork so the water can get outside
It's
into the
hilarious,
courtyard.
isn't it?
The copper pot, the mangle. I wouldn't want to be in there all the time. It has quite an oppressive feel in the room because obviously it's washed a lot. There's been a lot of hard labour go down in there. Yeah.
But just the beauty of it and the stories it could tell, that room.
Yeah, it's just
the space.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
You can probably envisage how, let's say women, because it would have been women, worked in that space.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you guys know, but Heatherbrae used to be on 26 acres.
Is that right?
Yeah. And it cared for a whole network of staff. So there were a system of shanties all the way down to Glen Huntly Road.
Okay.
And those people would walk up in the morning. They all had washing.
Yes.
And the people in the house had washing, and that all converged in the wash house.
Oh, the poor
And it was just
women
run
that
day
did
in,
that.
day out. And you feel that.
And they'd have to
walls.
wring it out, I guess.
Oh, there's a mangle.
There
is
Go
a
through the
mangle.
mangle. Yep.
Oh, dearie me. Tell us about the magnificent Moreton Bay Fig in your garden and how it's influenced the landscaping at Heatherbrae.
Well, it's certainly influenced our decision to buy the house.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is something else. You must come sometime and see it. Give her a cuddle.
Okay. When was that?
So the question is how it's influenced the landscaping. Well, it's certainly influenced the landscaping around the 400 square metres it sits on.
Yes.
So interestingly, just a few stats on the tree. It's 101 years old. It was planted by Leslie McGowan, who is the grandfather of the lady we bought it from. Trees like that went out to tender back then. I don't know if you know that.
No.
They were so expensive, and
Is
it
that
was a real
right?
sign of wealth and affluence to have a Moreton Bay or a Canary Island date palm, which we also have. It is such a beautiful when I stand next to it, I feel like I'm standing next to an elephant. And it gives off this beautiful energy and shade. And when the leaves blow, it's the most beautiful sound because it's so huge.
Yes.
But the way that it's influenced directly the landscaping is that we've decided, because it's low sunlight underneath it,
Yes.
that we're going to put a system of fairy pathways under there for
Divine.
grandchildren to get lost in. So that's
Divine.
directly how it's influenced the landscaping. Otherwise, we have close to half an acre in our front garden.
Yeah.
I know it's wild.
Yeah.
So we're putting a marquee garden in the front that we will open for
Beautiful.
about 10 days a year.
Yeah, great.
Right.
The marquee that we create will have windows that look directly upon the Moreton Bay Fig, and it'll be uplit and beautiful. So
Oh, divine. Couldn't be
Oh,
any more
sounds
beautiful.
stunning.
And I know you've touched on this briefly, but the deadline that you had for completing.
Oh, yeah.
Heatherbrae, that's
Just
just
a rough
gone.
deadline.
Well, it's just something we put out there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you have to create, from budget perspective, obviously
Yeah,
you have
sure.
to create
Yeah.
your deadlines, and we've well and truly said goodbye to that.
Yeah.
We've just recently sold a property to continue the journey so that we can do it properly, and we're very lucky to be able to do that. The original deadline, I think, was April.
Right.
And the reason why we have not met that deadline is principally due to planning issues and trade.
Yes,
We've
of
had a few
course.
trades that have let us down for whatever reason. It's very difficult for trades these days. They have to take so much work and they have to juggle
Yes.
so many commitments. So I'm definitely not putting down our trades. Our trades are pivotal and they create and build our cities, right? So it was just probably unrealistic expectations on our behalf. But what is realistic is that we'll be moving in by the end of next month.
Yay.
So, yes.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
What actually drives your passion for this whole heritage preservation element of you? And do you see yourself taking on more projects like this in the future?
Oh, man. Okay. Let me start with the first question. What drives my passion for heritage preservation? My children, our children. I think it'd be a very dark world without these beautiful aspirational buildings. I think that Australia's lost its way a little bit, our governments. You know, it's a very complex issue, right? So I understand that we have a housing crisis and I understand that we have an ageing population. And I understand that there are cyclical employment issues. I get all of that. But there is a better way to deal with this, in my opinion, than bulldozing our heritage homes and replacing them with buildings that will not last a generation.
Absolutely.
On so many levels.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I also think we need to lean into more of the building practices that we had 100 years ago because, you know, let's give this as an example. When I first put up the Instagram page, I had a disgruntled lady who sent me a message and said, "You're selfish. You should knock down the house and build high-density housing for the people who are living in their cars," right? So there's a lot of unpacking there, and I'm not passing judgment on anyone because I've lived on the street. It's not nice.
Sure.
But let's say that we do that. We knock it down. We build high-density housing in the current standards, and they're sold at affordable housing to young people trying to get into the market. Let's pull a figure out of the sky: $400,000, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and a car park. The problem with that whole structure is that I don't know whether these buildings are going to last the mortgage length. You know, I look at the current building, the way that buildings are made these days. There's cracking. There's issues with, you know, external fires and, you know, just all sorts of issues. So imagine that you're this person who's taken out a huge mortgage for 30 years for their dream home, affordable home, and you get to 25 years and you've got all these structural problems and you're seeing it in sinking funds, in body corporate sinking funds. I just don't think it's the way. I don't think that's what we should be encouraging people to do. What I think we should be doing is saying to our governments, let's rethink the infrastructure investment. Let's rethink the way we're doing this. Let's think about we're abundant in land.
Absolutely.
We should be putting in a slower measure. We should be rethinking the amount of immigration and we should be slower measure putting infrastructure in to create satellite cities instead of knocking down our heritage. My personal opinion.
Can you please go into the government? Would that be your next job?
Exactly. Or even cancel.
We need
would be
you.
Fine.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Look, I know that's all controversial and I totally get that it's complicated. I'm just trying to navigate it myself. And all I'm doing, I guess, at the moment is asking to have a seat at the table so that I can fly the flag for something I believe in.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's your passion.
Yep. Did that answer the question?
It did.
Thank you very well. So you're going to do another one?
Oh, gosh. So many people ask me that question.
Trying to get through this one.
The answer, I think, is I'll see. We'll see.
Have a holiday first.
Yeah, we haven't had a holiday since 2018, so we're a bit tired.
Yeah.
Watch that space.
Yeah, look, we will. We're thinking about having a holiday in January. And the wild things that are coming my way at the moment, which I'm so grateful for and I never expected. I've been invited to Carrara Mountain next year during Design Week over in Europe. So I'm trying to make that happen.
Yes.
Make it happen.
Make it.
For a private tour through the mountain.
Yes, you've got to do that.
Incredible.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm trying to drag Justin along, actually. Come on, Justin.
He'll be there.
You
don't
two can
worry.
have a lot of fun together.
Yes, I think you could.
But yeah, so I think beyond that, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I could ever say no.
Never.
Yes.
Because if I can save another one.
Yes, so
Yeah.
passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got it in you now.
There's one at the moment, Lord Lodge, actually, on Buran Road in Caulfield that I keep looking at. And there's something about that home, which is owned by the MRC, the Melbourne Racing Club.
Yes.
Gee, I'd love to bring her back.
Oh.
Oh, there we go. Snippet of the day. Now, well, tell us then, how do you think, and I know we've touched on this a little bit, but how do you think and see Heatherbrae impacting your local community and further generations, I suppose? And I know you've talked about your children.
Yeah.
But probably the local community, we could talk about that a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for my children, it's legacy, right?
Correct.
It's just trying to leave something for them and also leave a a moral blueprint for it for them as well. You know, like we're just the custodians.
Absolutely.
We don't know. You don't own these old homes.
No.
You've just got to care for them and then hand them on. But I guess what coincides with that is I really do feel a very strong pull to community. It's something that I blocked out during my darkest days. I made my world really small.
Sure.
Because of whatever reason. And this new version of myself that I've rebuilt block by block believes very strongly that part of the problem with our society these days is we live in silos, and we are encouraged to live in silos by technology and by government. And I don't think it's natural for the human being. I think we're social creatures. So I never want Heatherbrae to be blocked out from local community. And I'd like to create opportunities for people to come together. And I think that's what our page has done as well.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, it's just, you've got how many followers?
More than 50,000.
It's
yeah.
extraordinary, isn't it?
We deserve that.
Sure do. Oh, okay. Interestingly, there's a resident ghost at Heatherbrae.
There is. Yeah.
Please
look.
tell
Yeah,
more.
it's been really interesting actually. When I first walked through the home, and this is lawyer brain, very kind of logical, never believed in ghosts, right? So that's the backdrop. I walked into one of the rooms and noticed that it was much colder than the others. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought, oh, well, it must be because there's a cellar underneath or whatever. And then I came through another inspection with a girlfriend of mine, hi Jen, who has a connection to something greater than my brain was open to at the time. And she went into that room and wouldn't come out. And when she ultimately came out, she said, there's an old man in there. I said, there is not an old man in there. Come on, let's get going. But fast forward to we bought the house but hadn't settled yet. The agent got an email from the descendants of someone called Alfred Clark, who had seen that the house had been sold and they wanted to come through and have a look. And in the email, my girlfriend had told me that this old man in the room had died in there around 1920. Anyway, the email from the descendants had said, oh, look, Alfred Clark, he died in that room in 1913. And that's when I went, oh, okay, maybe there's something to this. So recently, Sunrise on 7 did a piece on our home, and they sent the gorgeous Christy Ma and Bill Tabone from the Australian Paranormal Society to come and check out the home. So we did that at night in the dark.
Oh,
you're brave.
and he and his son, who's a medium, they went through the home with their equipment and couldn't find anything until they got to Alfred's room, and they switched the equipment on and it went off straight away. And then Vince and I stood in the hallway right next door and listened, and this wasn't seen on television, so this is also not known. We listened to him have a full conversation with Alfred Clark, who died in 1913.
my God, what did he say?
It was the weirdest thing. Like we could hear him talking.
What?
Yeah, audible talking. So Bill had asked him why he hadn't crossed over. Did he love, was he happy there? And he said yes. The particular thing that he asked him that was interesting is that he said, do you like playing sport? And he said yes. Do you like playing cricket? He said, no, I liked to compete. So which is kind of the language of the early 1920s. So, yeah, so that was very wild.
So he's just living in that room?
Just in the room. And apparently there's a lady with him.
Oh.
So we're actually we have our own podcast, and we're going to do our first videoed podcast and upload it to YouTube with Bill talking to Alfred if we can get him to talk.
I'll be listening to that.
I won't be listening to that.
I will.
Well, you can watch it.
Oh,
this one you'll be able to
YouTube.
watch.
Okay, fabulous. I
Even
look
better
forward
for
to
you.
meeting Arthur.
Well, finally, my question to you is, what does a day, I know that you've answered this earlier, but what is a day like for you and Vince in the life of Heatherbrae and all the amazing things that you're doing in your project?
Well, I say to people, I gave up sleeping about 6 months ago. That's probably closer to the truth than it isn't. You're obviously running a social media page where we have such huge engagement, and I try to respond to every message. I'm so grateful for each and every one that follows us. I feel that it's my obligation to have a personal relationship and talk to as many people as I can. So there's a lot of that happening, both on Instagram and Facebook and Threads now. Who knew? TikTok, we've just started on TikTok as well. And so there's lots of conversations with lots of beautiful people. There is planning. So I will go for a walk in the morning, as most people know, my pounding the pavement, talking to my phone like a crazy woman. And then I get back, make Vinny a coffee, and we sit there and plan out our day. Yeah. And this is before 7 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So we plan out the day and then we put it into action. And that could be anything from me cleaning up the master suite so that it can be painted to going and choosing a new slab out in Bayswater or checking it against some stone, as you guys would know in your what you do every day. Or it could be, that piece of steel is too short, you need to go to X. And so I'm in the car a lot. Or it could be, I've got to paint some samples, or it could be a design meeting or a business meeting. Yeah. Like it's pretty full on. And eventually I get home and maybe cook something and find some time to clean something, do a bit of washing. It's a lot. It's a lot at the moment. But I don't say that. There is not a minute that I don't regret any of it. I'm enjoying every bit of it. So I feel lucky for my health and my vitality and to be doing something that I feel like is my purpose. So
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Loved hearing about your transformation. Truly, it's quite incredible.
Thank
you have an incredible story to tell.
Thank you.
And clearly everyone's loving it.
Clearly they are. It's very inspirational.
Thank you.
But it's and I know that you've said you have a lawyer's brain, but you obviously have something more than this.
That's right.
Yeah, Julie, because you wouldn't be able to create something so wonderful and so beautiful that you're both passionate about. So it's just it's an incredible journey to watch and see. And I personally, and I know that Chrissy has also enjoyed every moment of it.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for your support and so grateful to be here talking to you today. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing it amongst the community.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
That's our obligation as custodians, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to get in touch, email us on thedesignduet@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram page, The Design Duet.